Hello, welcome to the webinars for the Professional Development course for adult educators of the Tales2Share project. My name is Velina, and this webinar will focus on the intercultural competencies. Together, we will explore how adult educators can promote intercultural awareness, dialogue, inclusivity, particularly when working with elderly women. In an increasingly interconnected world, intercultural competence is an essential skill for education, and it helps us bridge the cultural differences, create inclusive learning environments, and empower elderly participants to navigate multicultural settings with confidence and respect. Throughout this session, we will discuss the key aspect of cultural awareness, communication across cultures, and strategies for facilitating the intercultural dialogue. So let's begin. As I said, this module aims to equip adult educators with the skills to foster intercultural awareness and sensitivity. You will learn to recognize cultural differences and the impact of culture on identity and social interactions, to facilitate intercultural dialogue in a way that promotes mutual understanding and respect, and to create inclusive spaces where elderly women from diverse backgrounds feel safe, valued, and engaged, especially for those elderly women that are having migrant backgrounds. And by developing those skills, we contributing to building more inclusive and participatory communities. So, to build intercultural awareness and competence, we first need to understand what is cultural awareness. This involves recognizing how our own cultural background shapes our identity, values, and behaviors, as well to acknowledge the diverse perspectives that others may have. Cultural awareness is not just about knowing different traditions or customs, it's about understanding the deeper influence of culture on communication, on behavior, and on social norms. And we're going to have a look at the components. So what's cultural awareness? Cultural awareness is the recognition that our background shapes the way we see the world. It helps us understand that others may have different ways of thinking, acting, and interpreting situations based on their cultural influence. Some of the key components include the language, the words we use, the expressions, even the structure of the language can reflect cultural values. Other components are the traditions and the customs, those rituals, holidays, social norms that shape how the individuals interact. Also, as a component, we have the beliefs and the values. They describe what is considered right or what is considered wrong in different cultures. For adult educators, understanding cultural awareness means actively promoting an inclusive environment where all cultures and cultural perspectives are valued and respected. So why is cultural awareness important in community education? When working with elderly women in diverse settings, the cultural awareness actually can help us promote inclusion. It ensures that all voices are heard and respected, and also helps reducing the misunderstandings. When we reduce the misunderstanding, we navigate cultural differences when we communicate and when we interact with each other. And also using the concept, understanding and then facilitating it actually encourages engagement. Once the participants feel more comfortable sharing their experience and their perspectives, they start participating more actively. So as educators, we need to foster an open and non-judgmental attitude that allows us to create safe spaces for learning and interaction. It also has impact on communication. Culture plays a fundamental role in communication, affecting both verbal and non-verbal interactions. Let's explore. So for verbal communication, example, some cultures use direct communication, where other cultures express their thoughts more openly and more explicitly. Other cultures, in direct communication, people express their thoughts openly and explicitly. Other cultures prefer indirect communications. They rely on the context, on the tone, on gestures, and any others more non-conventional ways to imply and convey meaning. Example, in some cultures, saying directly no, it's considered very impolite. So they use alternative phrases like "I'll think about that," or let's check on that, let's see it later, and etc. When it comes to the non-verbal communication, body language, eye contact, gestures, and very important, personal space, they all differ across the cultures. As an example, maintaining eye contact may be a sign of confidence in some cultures, while it can be seen as disrespectful in others. And understanding these differences help us avoid misinterpretation and actually build stronger connections between the participants we have. One very key aspect is the self-awareness and building self-awareness. It all starts from there. So to develop intercultural competence, again, starting with self-awareness, understanding our own biases and assumptions. We all have unconscious biases influenced by our cultural background, our experience. And in order to be more inclusive as educators, we can first reflect on our own cultural perspectives and assumptions. Then we can identify potential biases that may affect how we interact with others. And we can also use techniques like, example, journaling, mindfulness, active questioning to increase the self-awareness that we possess. And this will help us remain open to cultural perspectives and engage more effectively with diverse groups. So to promote respectful interactions after we have built our own self-awareness as educators, we have some steps here. First, very important, we can use inclusive language. We can be very mindful of words that may carry cultural or historical significance. They are like some sensitive sensitive words in some cultures that we must be aware of and speak in an inclusive way, more inclusive way. Second, we can encourage more active listening. That means to listen without judgment and acknowledge different perspectives. Doesn't mean we agree with each one perspective, but we acknowledge it and we respect the right of the person to have different point of view. And we also can facilitate cultural sharing. So we encourage elderly participants to share their traditions and stories with the aim to foster appreciation for diversity. By implementing these strategies, we can create learning spaces where all participants, or at least most of them, feel valued and empowered. So we're gonna jump into the second topic of this module, which is more practical, and it's about facilitating intercultural dialogue. Beyond cultural awareness, we also need the skills for facilitating the intercultural dialogue, where participants can exchange ideas and experience in a safe and, very importantly, constructive way. This involves to create inclusive spaces where everyone feels comfortable sharing. This means managing cultural misunderstandings that might appear by promoting patience, by promoting reflection, again, active listening, then to encourage mutual respect through interactive activities and discussions. And also, in order to facilitate effective intercultural dialogue, we need to establish first safe and open environment. We have a couple of ways of doing that. The first one, I'm quite sure that most of our educators are familiar with, but the first one is setting ground rules for respectful communication. Like, we don't interrupt each other. We have this amount of time to dedicate to these topics, like saying in advance what are the ground rules when we communicate, what words we can avoid, what we should not avoid, and etc. and etc. And then again, very important to encourage participation. This can happen through structured activities such as storytelling or group discussions. Normally, first comes the group discussions of a way to sparkle a conversation, then the storytelling may follow. That would be fantastic. And as we focus on elderly women, especially those from migrant background, we need to be mindful of the generational differences. Some elderly participants might need more time to feel comfortable with sharing their views. Some not, but there are some that are reluctant to open up and share those perspectives. So, small gestures like offering tea or using culturally familiar examples can create more welcoming atmosphere in this regard. Cultural misunderstandings, however, are natural. What's important and what makes a difference is how we handle them. Some of the strategies here are as follows, like encouraging a pause and reflect approach before responding to conflicts. Like providing time to reflect, providing time to really be mindful of what we're saying. And then something that works very well, in my view, is using I statements to express like any kind of concerns and negative emotions, including and so on, or very contradictory point of view and so on. Like it's good to start with I felt confused and I felt that you were speaking about that or speaking about this. I felt you might not consider this. Instead of saying something like you were unclear, you are wrong, and so on and so on, we use I statements. I might misunderstood you, but this and that and that. Then another thing is to frame misunderstandings as learning opportunities, not as conflicts. That would mean we change and switch the perspective, like not to engage in an emotional fight between our participants over values and etc. Because I know that the beliefs can be very strong for some topics, but to frame those misunderstandings as let's explore what are different views, what are possible approaches, why we have chosen those specific approaches to address the issue. And basically, by normalizing cultural differences and promoting respectful discussions, we can transform misunderstandings into very valuable learning moments. And lastly, I want to say that mutual respect is at the heart of intercultural competence. Activities that foster appreciation for diversity may be like story circles. Participants share personal or cultural stories. We can have cultural sharing panels where elderly women present aspects of their culture while others listen and ask open-ended questions, like demonstrating interest. Then another thing is to have respectful dialogue guidelines, more or less like the rules for communication that we spoke about, emphasizing curiosity, open-mindedness in the discussion. And by promoting these activities, we ultimately encourage more deepened connections and understanding among the participants. To summarize, intercultural competence is very essential for fostering inclusion in communities, in education, in diverse settings. And by understanding cultural awareness, adapting our communicational styles, promoting self-awareness, and facilitating meaningful dialogue, we can create safe and engaging spaces where elderly women to feel empowered, engaged, active. So I believe this module and this perspective are quite essential for starting any type of community program for elderly women, especially those from migrant background, including the refugees. And I hope this was useful, like in terms of guides, how guidelines, how you can implement it in your work. Thank you for listening. You can find all the webinars that we have recording under this course on the online platform on the Tales2Share project. And if you have any type of comments, do not hesitate to write our team or share what are your thoughts and what are your reflections after this webinar. Thank you.